Good evening, everybody. Tonight, our program is All Roads Lead to Chicago. Jim Kleeman will be drawing upon material from Rodney Peterson's extensive slide collection for a nostalgic look at passenger service in the Midwest from the 1950s to the 1970s. Thank you, Jim. Take it over now.
All right. This is the Pioneer's effort that Rodney photographed back in 1960 at Balfour, Iowa, which is a few miles east of Council Bluffs on Burlington, Maine at that point. I'm not sure what's going on here because we've got a crew member back here, and on a larger view, it looks like he has a red flag. Nonetheless, I thought it was a good title slide. It's one of the older pictures in his collection, and a piece of equipment we don't often see in service. So I'm going to start by some of the electric lines in the city of Chicago. This is one of the CTA's PCC cars on Clark Street in Chicago. And I'm guessing this is on the approach up the Roosevelt Road. You can see what looks like Dearborn Station right here in the background, and some other landmarks. Those of you who have ever photographed or seen photographs from this era from Roosevelt Road would recognize. We could also have a pub quiz, I guess, on all the cars we're going to see from the 50s and 60s, but I'm not going to get into that. I'll leave that to somebody else. This is one of the earlier CTA pictures in his collection. This is on the Garfield Park branch and was taken near the end of that line at Forest Park. And I used to ride this train. This went to Logan Park when I was commuting to and from medical school, living in Chicago in the late 60s. This is some more modern CTA equipment on what was at that point the Howard to Jackson Park line, which now goes all the way down to Dan Ryan. This is on the line, as I said, from Howard Street to Jackson Park. And this also brought memories to me back because this is the next station from where I used to get on to go to Loyola University in college. Now we're at the Skokie Swift Terminal in Skokie, Illinois. This was formerly North Shore, Chicago North Shore and Milwaukee trackage. But when the North Shore went out of business in 1963, the CTA took over the line from Howard Street out to Skokie and ran an operation they called, and it's still an operation called the Skokie Swift. This freight line over here was the Chicago Northwestern line that paralleled the North Shore up as far as Wisconsin, I believe. That line has been out of service for many years, no longer being used. Got a few shots of the Chicago, Aurora, and Elgin interurban. This in Wheaton, Illinois. Wheaton was a location where the lines branched to Elgin, Aurora, and I think St. Charles.
Yeah, that's still running from a park in St. Charles up to a yard they have along the river, the Fox River.
What runs on it?
Oh, they got, let me see, at least I think 3 trolleys.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a museum up there with a car barn, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, it runs down to a park, public park. Yeah, it's neat.
Neat, okay.
Both of the poles are down. Why would they have done that?
Well, I'm going to show you, and maybe some of you can answer the question. Here's another shot. This is at Displains, and I've noticed on a number of his shots, there's a third rail. And I didn't realize that the Chicago, Aurora, and Elgin ran off a third rail. And especially in some of the locations, like here's another shot. You know, this is there's a great crossing here, and there's no fences. I mean, it would seem to be rather precarious situation to have this third rail out in the open, but apparently they ran on third rail for a good part of the line.
My Chicago friends tell me that there was. My Chicago friends tell me that there was never a problem with pedestrians electrocuting themselves. They're smarter in Chicago than they are here.
Well, they were probably smarter than the young kids today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
This is Val.
Yeah.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Val. They also used third rail down on the Douglas line, which was south of Oak Park, east of downtown. And same thing, no particular problems. Yeah. And worked out fine. And well, for someone saying that Chicagoans are pretty smart, I'd agreed with that too. I lived up there for about almost a dozen years, and I count myself fortunate to have done so. Yeah. Anyway, back to you. Thanks.
Thanks for the compliment.
All right. Well, I grew up in Chicago, so I don't remember being that smart, but I think it was just sort of a different era. Okay.
I was born on the UC campus.
Another one of Insule's Interurbans was the Electra Liner, and these were built in 1941 by the St. Louis Car Company, and they had two sets that ran back and forth between Chicago and Milwaukee, and they ran until 1963 when the North Shore line was abandoned. Then they were sold to the Red Arrow line between Philadelphia and Norristown, renamed Liberty Liners, and ran for another 15 years. And one of them's in the Illinois Railroad Museum. And Charles, can you tell me if that's still operating? I think it is operating. That's my recollection, looking at the Illinois Railroad Museum.
One of these electric cars, you mean?
No, the Electra Liner. Is the Electra Liner operating?
Oh, gee whiz, I don't know. When I go out there, I pay attention to the steam, and so I don't look too much the other stuff.
They just finished a refurbishment.
I think they may have been running at the convention.
Yeah, they just finished a refurbishment of it. And the other one is owned by the Trolley Museum at Orbizonia, and I believe it is operable or has been operable in recent years.
Yes. And the one in IRM ran last week. They did completely repainted it, and they put on their Facebook page shots of it on the road.
All right, well, it's good to know.
It's stunning.
All right, and here is a two-car set going over the North Shore Channel in Skokie. This is still in operation as part of that Skokie Swift operation. And here is another set on the Chicago L at Chicago Avenue. And here, of course, you can see, just like the L, they use third rail here, but of course, not much pedestrian access to this line. This is one of my favorite of Rodney's North Shore pictures. Just has a lot of character with the motorman looking out the rear, to the conductor helping somebody on or off. I assume some patrons have just gotten off to the Libertyville Station. And this was taken on the last day of operation in 1963. And
where's Libertyville in relation to Chicago?
It's north and a little west. There was a branch, I think it's called the Mundelein branch. It came off from maybe around Lake Bluff that went out to Mundelein in Libertyville.
Okay.
Yeah. This also was taken on the last day of operation in Glenview. And I remember this vividly because I lived about a quarter mile from the North Shore. And I remember this day with all the snow, and my dad and I went out because he was a photographer, though not a railroad photographer. And we photographed a couple of trains on the North Shore. And somewhere I've got those slides, and I got to, take a look at them. And I wonder, I can't see a number here. Maybe I was with him when we photographed this very train in Glenville, Illinois. Now we're up on the North Shore, or the South Shore rather, and they had a fairly extensive commuter operation, which still exists under the auspices of it's called the Northern Indiana Transit District. And this is in Michigan City, Indiana, where they had street running, so it was a popular place to photograph. Here's another photograph in Michigan City, Indiana. This was in 2006, yes. Much more recent. Yeah.
He's photographed, folks.
All right. This station over here, or this building, was the Michigan City station for the South Shore. And I'll ask you to notice this Ford right here. And the reason this photograph is in here is because as I went through Rodney's collection, I found this one taken from almost exactly the same place in 1958 with the station in full swing here. Also a much more interesting Ford taxi cab over here. And one of the South Shore's Little Joes. And I'm guessing this must have been some sort of rail fan event because we have an awful lot of photographers standing here. I believe this Little Joe is also in the Illinois Railway Museum.
I have seen one out there, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So,
Jim, do you know if is it Rogers? Is that the right name? Collection?
Rodney Peterson.
Rodney. I'm sorry. Do you know if he has any shot or took any shots of the Elgin, Joliet, and Eastern in the 50s?
Yes. In fact, well, I don't know if it's in the 50s. I think I've scanned a number of his EJ&E photographs.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. And maybe you and I can hook up together and I can show you some of those somehow. Yeah, I don't know that I have any of those in this particular show because I'm focusing on passenger operations here.
Okay.
All right. So now we move on to the IC operation and the commuter line. And this is at West Pullman, which is about, I think, 15 miles south of downtown. These are some standard steel cars that were built in the, let's see, 1911 these were built. Then we've got some more modern equipment that they brought in the early 70s. And I remember seeing these when I was in this part of town. I don't know that any of them are still running. All right, that finishes off the electric operations. We'll go to what were called the steam roads by the interurban folks. We'll start with the Illinois Central because we're in that neck of the woods. This was taken in 1950. It's Illinois Central passenger train at Central Station. And I remember this area pretty vividly because I used to pick up my wife when she would come back from college at this station. It has now been completely torn down, redeveloped with some condos and high rises and some high-end shopping. And actually, I have a sister-in-law who lives just to the left of where this picture is taken. I can look down on the commuter line and see what's still there. Just to our right is the Field Museum, if you're familiar with Chicago.
I think most of the IC rails have been pulled, haven't they?
Well, I don't know. There are rails still there, but of course they're used by the South Shore. So I don't know if any of that is original IC or it's all just what was left from the South Shore. I'm pretty sure they kind of shared the right of way this close into the city, but I'm no expert on that.
Okay.
The South Shore ran by trackage rights from Kensington into Randolph Street.
Well, a lot of rails. I'm thinking of away from Chicago, actually, out into Western Illinois. A lot of the IC rails are gone now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they might very well be. So here a little bit further south of the loop, this is the city of New Orleans, heading south. I don't know this exact location. An impressive train in 1971, just before Amtrak, I guess, right? Amtrak was made first. This slide was labeled the Shawnee, and I'm not sure exactly where this was taken. Maybe some of you Chicagoans, I don't know if this is a northbound or a southbound train, but this was in April of '73.
Jim?
Yeah.
That is right near Union Junction, just east of there, and that's the St. Charles Airline, and they're going over to 16th Street and then down to, I don't know where they went under Amtrak.
Yeah, okay. But this is, the Shawnee was a train that ran primarily for college students at the Champaign-Urbana campus of the University of Illinois, and the Carbondale campus of Southern Illinois University, because it ran for the most part, I think, on Fridays and Sundays. And I think there was a Saturday train they called the campus from U of I. So this was a college commuter train. All right, now we're at the 21st Street crossing. This is the Hawkeye. And this was a Sioux City, Iowa to Chicago train. And I found it kind of interesting. It's got some container traffic on the front end and looks like a fair amount of baggage. So
there's a lot of diamonds there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this was where this line over here was out of Union Station. This led up to Dearborn Station and the IC station. So you would see IC trains, Santa Fe, all the Dearborn traffic, the stuff out of the PRR stuff out of Union Station. So yeah, this was a very busy junction back in the day, and a fair amount of it has been torn up because those downtown stations, other than Union Station, are no longer serving any inner city trains. This is the city of New Orleans at Homewood, Illinois, in 1967.
Question on the Hawkeye?
Yes.
Would there be a steam generator equipped locomotive on the front end? And did they pass the steam through those flat cars holding the containers?
I have no idea. I mean, it's a passenger train. I would think they'd have to have steam heat, but
those were passenger
jeeps.
Those were passenger jeeps.
I had four.
Train. And they did have
four
steam
dedicated lines. Yeah, you saw two of the four that they had, so they were assigned to the Hawkeye.
Yeah.
If you look right over the bell, you can see the stack for the steam generator in the short hood.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how they got the steam back. If this was a regular operation, I mean, the Santa Fe had some, and I got a picture later in the show, had some F-45s, which were freight units, and they did not have steam generators, but they did have steam lines so that they could be operated on passenger trains. So maybe the IC did this with some of these intermodal cars and their baggage cars. All right, this is, I don't know what train this is. Was listed as being in Ivanhoe, which is a control point, if that's what the IC called them, just north of Harvey, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. This is the Green Diamond. I'm pretty sure this is a northbound, looking at the maps that I have. This was a St. Louis to Chicago train at the time. This is what was labeled a game day special at Clinton, Illinois. Clinton's not that far from Champaign-Urbana, the University of Illinois campus. But this is January, so I don't think there were any football games. So I'm not sure what game it was going to. There's a nice picture in the snow, but I have no location. This was not one of Rodney's photos. This was the NRHS special in Springfield, Illinois in November of 1969. No additional information on that. I tried to find out if the NRHS had some meeting. Maybe it was an NRH chapter that sponsored this excursion.
When Amtrak took over, didn't they use steam heat for a while before they went to electricity?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They did. They did. All right. This is in Springfield, Illinois. This is train 21. At one point, train 21 went from Chicago to St. Louis, but I think in about 1968, it was truncated and only went to Springfield, so they renamed it from the Green Diamond to the Governor's Special. This was the last
Jim?
run. Yes.
That picture a few behind that you couldn't identify, the one with the snow?
Yeah.
Back there?
Yeah.
That's Gilman.
Gilman. All right. Good. Let me.
Hey, there's still a coaling tower standing there.
Yeah. All right. Find it on my list and I'll put it down here. Gilman. Okay, that's on the main lines, not too far out of Chicago. I've been there. I photographed. I'll have to look and see if anything looks familiar. Thanks for the info. So again, this is the last run of the Governor's Special, just before Amtrak Day, April 30th of '71. Kind of classy. They have an E6 on the point of this. It's such a late date. This is another photo of train 21. This is in August of '69. Not as impressive as the one we saw in the last photo. And these Rio Grande F units were leased by the IC. I don't know how many of them they had. They also leased some Bessemer and Lake Erie F units. And Rodney has a fair number of those photos. But this is focusing on passengers, so I don't have those shots in this program. This is the Shawnee. This is one of those trains from the college towns. This is at Effingham, Illinois. Now, that's the label on this train. I got a little question here though. This does not look like any of the consists I've seen on those trains with a dome car. And I have some thoughts that maybe it's a detour move, but the only train I could find that headed south out of Chicago that might have domes was maybe the Floridian, but it did not take this route. So if anybody has any thoughts about that, chime in. But it's labeled the Shawnee, but I suspect it's not.
Could have been. Isn't that early Amtrak?
Yes.
Could it be spring break? They have extra cars on there or something, you know?
I don't know. Now, Amtrak ran the Shawnee. The Shawnee was an Amtrak train. They continued that. They had the Panama Limited, but at least the time frame of this picture and the schedule for the Panama Limited at that time doesn't make sense unless it was really like, almost 12 or 15 hours late. I think the Panama Limited would go through this in the middle of the night.
It looks like they put it together from excess equipment. I think that's quite a few, or at least a few Penn Central cars in there.
Well, this is early Amtrak, so they had a rainbow assortment of cars.
Could have been everybody's leftovers.
Yeah.
Aren't the Shawnees a Western tribe? If they are, it's interesting Illinois Central took that name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in Ann Arbor in the early '70s, and the Michigan trains had after May 1st, the Michigan trains were just a complete hodgepodge of anything. So.
Hodgepodge.
This is the rainbow era of Amtrak. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to tell.
It could have been private cars going back to their storage place.
No, not
in that era.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was Amtrak's Rainbow.
Referred to as the circus train era, really.
Yeah. So here's what I think the Shawnee is supposed to look like normally in May of '73, the same place in Effingham. And, this looks like primarily coaches and maybe, 6, 7 cars. So.
Yeah, they had L&N coaches at that time. So that makes sense for the Shawnee.
Yeah. I have 3 of my siblings went to SIU and probably rode this train, but I don't think they paid much attention to the concerts. They're not rail fans. All right, this is the city of Miami, at least the St. Louis section of the city of Miami, in East St. Louis, and if you go to Google Earth and go to Street View, you can put yourself right at this intersection, and this viaduct is still there.
Isn't East St. Louis considered, quote, the other side of the tracks, unquote?
Probably.
Very much.
Yeah. And this is in St. Louis, and this is the northbound Creole, and I think this is arriving and backing in from what I can deduce from looking at the schedule. This is, I think there was a bridge that went over the throat of this yard that I've seen a lot of photographs from. I've never been there, so. And then here's the city of New Orleans in Memphis, Tennessee. Whoops. Get back to that. And the question is, was Steve Goodman describing passengers changing cars in Memphis, Tennessee in the city of New Orleans song, or did the railroad actually swap out equipment? Inquiring minds want to know, because I love that song.
Hey, Jim, if you go back to that previous picture where you thought he was backing into the station, you can see the engineer looking into the mirror.
Right.
Yeah. So he's definitely backing, I'd say.
Yeah.
I'll challenge you with Orange Blossom Special as a favorite song.
All right. All right, but the city of New Orleans is just, I've done a couple of programs using it. So I don't know if they change cars in Memphis, Tennessee, but here's Memphis, Tennessee.
No, that was poetic license.
I thought so. I couldn't find any documentation of that. All right, now we hit some of the smaller roads. This is Grand Trunk Western. This is the International Limited. And I think this is the southward view from Roosevelt Road. You don't see many photographs from that angle, but so this would be coming into to Dearborn Station. And same location. This is the Chicago and Eastern Illinois Danville local. And here we're under the train shed at Dearborn on a rather cold New Year's Eve in 1967 with the Mohawk, presumably getting ready to depart. You can see a Santa Fe switcher over there on the left. They shared the station with a number of other roads as we discussed before the meeting. All right, we'll move on to the Chicago Northwestern. They had a pretty extensive commuter operation. This was in Waukegan, Illinois. The Northwestern had a lot of E units and F units that were regular visitors to my neighborhood because I lived north of the city. And so these
Isn't that Jack Benny's hometown?
Pardon?
Isn't that Jack Benny's hometown?
I don't know.
Yes, it is. I think it is. Yeah.
We'll have to rely on them, Bill. If you say so. Okay. Okay, here we are at Austin Avenue in Chicago with an F unit. Another one at Austin Avenue running on far track. Arlington Heights at a station stop. And again, I find I know that's a Ford Falcon. It looked like maybe a '64 Ford. it's kind of fun to look at these cars. This is an interesting animal. This is called a Crandall Cab. The Northwestern got a hold of some Union Pacific EB units and put cabs and control stands in them. And it was a brainstorm of a guy named Milt Crandall, who was the superintendent of motor power in the early 70s. And, you know, we used to see them a lot on the commuter runs. And it's sort of ironic that Mr. Crandall was in the engine room of one of these at a station during a bad snowstorm and had a fatal heart attack and passed away in the cab of a locomotive that he designed. This is labeled as a passenger special. I've seen numerous pictures of these F units running on passenger specials on the Northwestern. No details on exactly what this was all about. But
it looks like the last car is a theater car. You can see the rear windows. The windows go up in steps. Yeah, so it could be a director special, a shipper special.
Yeah.
Don't see many full-length domes.
Yeah, that's a former Milwaukee Road dome that Northwestern bought. And
this was, you know, this was what I think it was called Zito Yellow for a while. They jazzed up their yellow paint and they used it on these F units and I think some of their C40-8s and SD60s. Now for you Chicago folks, I want to know where this picture was taken because I can't identify it. This is 2 F units on a freight train somewhere in Chicago, and you can see there's a diamond there. But this does not ring a bell with me in terms of what I know about the Northwestern freight operations in Chicago. So, an unknown location.
Well, they had some transfer runs, so it could be almost anywhere. Yeah. First, I thought Blue Island Crossing, but that isn't quite.
Yeah, no, it doesn't match that. Yeah, I've been there, so it's not Blue Island.
Well, there's probably a river there with those lift bridges, right?
Yeah, a river and a diamond. So have to keep digging around and see if I can identify that location.
I've only been here 6 years, so I don't know.
Yeah, okay. You're excused then. This is at Western Avenue, which is where the Northwestern line and the Milwaukee Road line diverge, coming out of downtown. I don't know, is this the Northwestern line that goes to Elmhurst? I think it is. The Northwestern or the Milwaukee Road line is one that I think goes up to Fox Lake. But this was a pretty busy.
That's correct on both counts.
Yeah.
The Northwestern heads to Geneva, West Chicago and Geneva, Illinois.
Yeah, okay. So there's a couple of F units and a solitary E unit. And I rode in these gallery cars when I moved and had a way to get downtown, that way to go to school. So I remember them fondly. Got to read the paper on the way to school. So same location, a couple of Milwaukee Road trains. Leading this one, and I've seen a number of pictures with, you know, a single level passenger car right behind the engine. I don't know if that was just a question of not having enough gallery cars to fill out the consist, or
I wonder if it's in Chicago. I think they still have. There's like a private club car that a group owns on the commuter train that runs on the Northwestern commuter line. You know.
Okay.
Well, then, except this is Milwaukee Road, so that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll take that back.
Well, here's another one. You know, next train. Whoops. I mean, there's that train now. Shortly after, we have another one with the same, you know, appearance.
Okay, so yeah, my theory is not. I rescind my theory.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe there's a large group of executives who want to have a drink on the way home.
Yeah.
Could it have something to do with accessibility between the engine and the bilevels?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the doors on the lower level. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I've seen a lot of pictures. but by the 70s, they'd stopped doing that.
Yeah.
What's the date of the photo, or do you know?
May 28th, 1970.
Okay, I see it. Yeah, I look like
I see it in the bottom.
I see a 67 or so Chevy in the background. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if this is a slide that Rodney took or whether this might be a duplicate, but this is in Sioux City, Iowa, 462 Streamline, number 801. And they did have a passenger run from Sioux City to Chicago, so maybe this was the power laying over.
Were any of the Milwaukee Road's 442s saved? Anybody know?
I'm not aware.
No, they're all gone.
Yeah.
What is
and this Pacific was for the Midwest Hiawatha. So they had a section from Sioux City that joined a section from Omaha. And this was the Sioux City section, or Sioux Falls and Sioux City section.
Okay, the Atlantics that I was referring to, I think didn't they have 7-foot drivers or something? Pretty tall.
All right.
Yep, they were big.
All right, and this is we're in Milwaukee. Here's just a roster shot of an E7. Now this is the Milwaukee commuter line. This is at Rondout. That's the EJ&E Diamond that it's crossing. And I can recall being up here and seeing a sign that said "Slow to 100." That was, and that was for the railroad. That was that was not for that old Cutlass in the corner or whatever that is. Another shot from the same location. When the North Shore was still operating, they had an elevated line that went over this Milwaukee Road track right behind where the photographer is standing, and that's the rail fans go up there to get some shots of the Milwaukee and the EJ&E in the current day. It's a bike to Milwaukee trail.
Did the Milwaukee Road have a fast train between Chicago and Milwaukee, like the CNW?
They had a lot of them. They had trains as fast, took 75 minutes to go from downtown to downtown.
I think the CNW advertised 400 miles in 400 minutes or something like that.
Well, that was to Minneapolis, I think. Yeah, the 400s. And it's interesting you mention that because this is the fast mail from in Wisconsin Dells, and this is from Minneapolis to Chicago. And all the schedules I've found has this going through the Wisconsin Dells in the middle of the night. So this fast mail was a lot slower on this day, or they changed the schedule. But I think Rodney vacationed up there.
No, this is the south.
This is the southbound.
This is southbound train 58. 58 went during the day. 55 went at night.
Yeah. All right. Milwaukee Road Skytop Lounge in Portage. I don't know if this is still an intact car. The Friends of the 261 who run the Milwaukee 261 out of Minneapolis, St. Paul do have the Cedar Rapids, which is a similar car that is in their consist. So at least one of these is still operating. They've got it painted in the two-tone, maroon and orange.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 still exist.
Yeah.
Del Rapids is in Florida, Coon Rapids is in the Upper Peninsula, and Cedar Rapids is in the Twin Cities.
All right, thanks for that info. All right, this is in the Amtrak era. This is the North Coast Hiawatha in Wisconsin Dells. And you can see this is what, year after Amtrak, year and a half, some Northern Pacific cars in here, along with some fluted cars near the rear. So again, the rainbow era of Amtrak. There's some switching in Minneapolis, and this Milwaukee Road Baldwin RS-12 doing the honors. And I kind of like this picture because we have the Hiawatha elevator over there. That was nice.
Wasn't the Chippewa another Milwaukee Road passenger train of the steam era?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't know any details about it.
Yeah, that went Chicago, Green Bay to the Upper Peninsula.
All right, this is, now we're going to do some Rock Island. This is an F unit. This was posted, Bill Kaufman put this up on a passenger train Facebook page, and the consensus seemed to be that this was probably moving some cars to or from the coach yard. This consist was probably from the Golden State, which was one of their streamliners. Okay, the Aerotrain. Those of you who saw my Rodney Peterson Pensy program will know some of this, but these were introduced by EMD in 1955 using the same prime mover that was used in the SW 1200. They had modified GMC 40-seat inner city bus bodies, similar to what was used on the Cena Cruiser, designed for Greyhound. PRR rented the first set, and it was used on the New York to Pittsburgh run, and we had some pictures of that in the previous show. It was bought by UP and used on the city of Las Vegas in 1957. And in 58, both train sets were sold to the Rock Island and assigned to the Chicago to Joliet commuter service. So this is in Joliet. The station is just to the right out of the picture. And here's the power car in Chicago.
That looks really strange by itself.
Yeah. Now, yeah, this is also looks strange. I remember seeing this first in a Ted Benson book. EMD built two of these AB6s for the Rock Island, and they were used on whatever their streamliner was to, I guess it was the Rocky Mountain Rocket, because it went to Limon, Colorado, if that's how you pronounce it, and it was split into two sections, one for Denver, one for, I think, Colorado Springs. And this unit was second, and it led whatever cars were going to Colorado Springs, while the sleek, streamlined E6 on the Point took the cars to Denver. And then in the reverse move, they put them together at Limon and then brought it to Chicago. And so when Rock got out of passenger business, long intercity passenger business, they used this on their commuter trains. And there's another shot of it at Englewood. I'm not sure what looks more bizarre. This is the Crandall Cab. I think this is a little more bizarre than the Crandall Cab.
Englewood was a pretty busy place in the steam era, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, wasn't that where the PRR and the New York Central would arrive at the same time and race out of the station?
And take off at the same time, right?
Yeah. Well, so this is another commuter at Joliet on the Rock Island. And speaking of Englewood, this is Englewood back in 1966 with a F7 and an RS3. And I was looking at this junction on Google Earth, and there's a track separation here now. I think the tracks here, this part of the diamond was the New York Central, and I think it's now NS. And right now, the Rock, which is now Metro trackage and still used for commuters, they're grade separated. So the Rock goes over the Norfolk Southern, what formerly was the New York Central.
I think the station is gone.
Yeah. Okay. This is the FP7 we saw on the first Rock slide, moving the passenger cars in a really classy scheme. As money got tight, the paint schemes got more simple. And this is what it looked like a few years later in the freezing cold winter in Des Moines, Iowa. Somewhere the Rock found some money to dress up some of their passenger equipment. So this is at Blue Island. This is for Bill Holmesworth, right, Bill?
Yes, that's right. You know, that's about 2 miles from where I grew up. Yeah.
Yeah. Commuter train number 218. They also use that. Here's the morning Peoria rocket, which I think left Peoria about 7 in the morning. Again, I'm liking these automobiles. Looks like a Chevy. Some people could come up with the year, I'm sure. And this is the morning Peoria rocket a little bit later in the day, and obviously a different day at Joliet. This is a Rock Island mixed train. This is interesting. You know? So we have passenger up front and intermodal in the rear. And these are former UP units that the Rock purchased or leased at some point. This is somewhere in Chicago. I don't know the exact location. I had to throw a couple of freights in here because they're interesting. This is a Joliet. This is a westbound Rock Island freight with an FA1, an F7, and I think two GP9s, and an intermodal, at least the front of the train, and then regular freight on the rear here.
I bet that junction took a little bit of maintenance.
Yeah, I bet it did. I mean, this was a junction with what, the Santa Fe, the GM&O, I think, the Rock. Pretty much the same location, another Rock Island freight, this time with a U-28B and a U-33B in the lead. All right, we'll move on to the CB&Q. This is in Savannah, Illinois. This is one of the Burlington's excursion locomotives, 5632, which I had the privilege of riding behind at least one time when I was a teenager.
That's Savannah? That's near the Mississippi Palisades Park, I think, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not familiar enough to know how close it is to the park, but yeah, it is Savannah. And here's another photo from Savannah, and there's the same day. Rodney obviously is up on a bridge here. I'm assuming that he's on a bridge across the Mississippi.
Mississippi Palisades is nearby there, and it's a great train crossing spot. Yeah, for the PNN these days.
Yeah. So here we have some commuter action on the Burlington. This is at Lagrange, and I find these pictures really interesting because I've photographed a lot of commuter operations. These towns look a little different 40 years later. And here again, look, we have high-level cars, but right behind the locomotive is a single-level car. You know, I'm thinking they just didn't have enough equipment and they still had to use some of their old single-level cars until they, could fill out the consist.
Maybe the parlor cars if they made money off of the bar.
Yeah. Here's another one. This is at Western Springs.
The heavyweight, that's kind of exotic.
Yeah, well, that might be, that looks like a pretty nice car. Maybe it is a parlor car. This is at Western Springs. And again, this is a freight, but I thought it would be interesting to put it in here. We got a couple of FTs, an A and a B on the point. I think that's probably a Jeep 9 tucked in, and then a couple of F7s. I think this is eastbound on the Q. This is at Hinsdale. Again, a single level car, and then the galley cars. I don't think they painted many of their locomotives in that scheme. That's an early BN scheme. They just let it.
And the heavyweight is in BN.
Yeah. So
that's the only heavyweight I've ever seen in Burlington Northern.
Yeah.
Could that heavyweight be a HEP car?
That's what I was thinking. It looks like there's smoke coming out of it, like it's a generator car.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But boy, Because you see that, I've seen that configuration a lot on these pictures back in this era. Now, obviously, they put HEP units in the E's because they ran for a long time, but they probably, you know, they could take out the steam boiler and put in head-end power.
Stained glass from the Clear has been taken out too.
Yeah. And here we are again in Lagrange. Now, I've been to Lagrange, and my recollection is that the station, which you can just see over here, is on the south side of the track, which means this is an inbound train with the locomotive in pull configuration instead of what they do nowadays, pushing. So I think there may be a period where they were still turning the locomotives at the end of the run, because we've got some pictures in Union Station later where you see the same situation. Here's another one. This is at Hinsdale. Here, the single level car is at the rear. And now we have some long distance trains. This is the eastbound Illinois Zephyr. And I think this went as far as the Quad Cities. Let's see if I can find my notes here.
Quincy, Illinois to Chicago.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, West Quincy to Chicago. And it was due at Lagrange at 9:40 a.m. And this wasn't labeled as the direction, but looking at the schedule. So I think this is heading eastbound. This is, I believe, the city of San Francisco in suburban Chicago. This is in the Amtrak era, and when they took over, they had the Denver Zephyr running 7 days a week, but the San Francisco Zephyr only ran 3 days a week. At some point, they combined the two, but I think this was before that with all these domes. I'm pretty sure this is the San Francisco Zephyr. And this is the
during that first summer, they ran it in two sections. The first section was Denver, and second was San Francisco.
Right. Yeah. And then at some point, I think they combined them, but not in the beginning. And this is the Empire Builder, and this is just before Amtrak. So this is actually BN, I think, right? Well, no, because BN merged. It was May of '70. This is April of '70. So this is still the Great Northern Empire Builder with BN Power. And here's the North Coast Limited at East Dubuque. This is 61, so this is still a Northern Pacific train, and you can see the Northern Pacific paint scheme showing up nicely back there. This is the Westbound Empire Builder in Hastings, Minnesota. This is the Morning Zephyr in Minneapolis. This is in the CB&Q era, and couldn't have been making much money off this train with 3 E units and 2 passenger cars. This is in Minneapolis, and this wasn't labeled as to the train, but I'm guessing this is the Main Streeter was. That the Northern Pacific's premier streamliner back in '69.
Does that monad symbol show up anymore, or is that all gone?
You can still see it on the old NP stations across the Dakotas that are still standing, but I don't think it's on any rail equipment.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is at an unknown location, but I put that in here because it was a really nice shot of the nice complete Northern Pacific streamliner on the North Coast Limited. That's the train. That's I was trying to think of in Minneapolis. Nice way from the conductor there. Or maybe back in those days, it was the fireman. Another really nice picture. Now, we're a little ways from Chicago, but it's headed to Chicago. This is the Empire Builder on the Gaston Coulee Trestle just west of Minot, North Dakota.
Isn't that the so-called feather bedding era when the fireman wasn't really needed? I remember seeing headlines in paper about feather bedding.
Well, yeah, there was such an issue, but we won't get into that tonight.
Okay.
No politics. Okay. Moving on to the Gulf Mobile in Ohio. This is at Mason City, Illinois. This is one of their motor cars. This is an Alco DL109. The GM&O had 3 of those. This is sitting at Lagrange, probably just rusting away. He's got a lot of pictures of GM&O passenger trains. This is what I believe is the inbound Abraham Lincoln at Union Station in Chicago. Here we are back at the 22nd Street crossing again. And this is the commuter train from Joliet that I'm told was called the Plug. There's a little blurb in Trains Magazine online about this. With a picture in exactly the same number. You've seen this 883A show up a couple of times in the photos. An unknown passenger train in Chicago on the GM&O with 2 E7s.
That looks like the overnight midnight special.
The midnight special, yeah, okay. Here we are in Joliet. Now we're in the Amtrak era. This is the Prairie State. This was a Milwaukee to St. Louis train. They ran down the GM&O, and this is really kind of a nice photo because you have a well-preserved, freshly painted GM&O boxcar over here, and this, maybe late 60s Mustang?
No, I think 64 Mustang.
The 64 Mustang? Mid-60s, and okay, yeah. I wonder if that's a photographer. He posed his Mustang.
I'll bet it is.
Mustang was introduced, it must have been a 65.
Yeah.
That's when it was introduced.
It was introduced in April of 1964.
Yeah. All right.
So,
all right. So here's a Milwaukee Road unit that Amtrak got a hold of and is now on there. And I think this is the Prairie State. That's me kind of doing a little research on the schedules and trying to figure out what this is in Bloomington this time of the day. In 1972.
Yeah, that's the Prairie State. That's a morning shot.
Yeah. This is, a nice passenger train. Bill Kaufman put this up on that passenger Facebook site, and an interesting story came back, which I'm going to relay to you. This was a special train en route to Chicago that was carrying the president of the GM&O, a gentleman known Mr. Brox, with his wife and grandson. They were going to discuss the merger with the Illinois Central. And the guy who posted the comments was the fireman on this train. So this was on the way to Chicago to facilitate the merger discussions.
When the Amtrak came into being, did they decide what equipment was going to leave service soon and then decide not to redecorate or repaint it into an Amtrak scheme?
That's a reasonable supposition, but I don't have any details on that.
Did the GM&O go defunct completely, or was it absorbed after the ICG merger? Or do you know?
Well, it became part of the ICG merger, and then the name was changed to Illinois Central, and then some of the GM&O lines were spun off I think the SP and then the UP took the line down to St. Louis, didn't they? And the Mid-South took some of the lines down below Kansas City and Memphis. And it was, just carved up amongst other railroads who wanted bits and pieces of it, because I don't think the IC kept a lot of it.
I think preceding that, it was just the Mobile in Ohio, wasn't it?
Before it was the Gulf Mobile in Ohio, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Here we are in Springfield in the winter. This is train 1, the Abraham Lincoln Chicago to St. Louis train. This is probably the same train again in Springfield on another day. Sunnier weather again in Springfield.
Wow.
And here's another Prairie State after Amtrak's takeover with GM&O Power, Milwaukee Road Power, some Milwaukee Road cars, a couple of Amtrak painted cars. Again, the Rainbow era. This is listed as the State Fair Special. Springfield is the site of the Illinois State Fair. So where this came from, I don't know, but presumably taking patrons to the State Fair in Springfield. And that, it's got three F3s on it. And this is train 1 in St. Louis. And if it is train 1, it's a Chicago train. So presumably it's backing in or has backed in, is just sitting there waiting for hustlers to take the power and move it around. All right, so we'll move on to the Santa Fe. This is south of Dearborn Street, and I'm guessing that's Roosevelt Road up on top. And I'm looking at the far right. I think Rodney was probably on a train coming in or leaving Chicago, and you can see the engineer looking out the window there. So he's presumably backing the train in. This is just a nice roster shot of 3 U-28CGs, which the Santa Fe was the only owner. They were based off the U-28C and had steam generators installed. They were the first war bonnets with the big billboard Santa Fe on them. They were implicated in a derailment near Chillicothe in 1969. And so they were relegated to freight service and repainted into blue and yellow shortly thereafter, I think by 1970 something. This is the Texas Chief, outbound at Joliet, Illinois. This is the Grand Canyon, also in Joliet, with the U-28CG on the point.
Nice entrance on that station. Wow.
Yeah. This is not a passenger train. Look at what's behind the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 F7s. That's inbound at Joliet. That's in 1963.
Perfectly matched too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's just a beautiful photo.
Semaphore is still working.
Yeah. This is 1972, so we're in the Amtrak era. This is the Amtrak Super Chief El Capitan. Santa Fe let him keep those names, but only for a brief period of time. I think my understanding is that Santa Fe was not happy with how they were, treating the legacy of the Santa Fe passenger train. So they said, you can't use those names anymore. And then they were named the Southwest Chief. But this is at Chillicothe. And you can see the high-level cars that were used on the El Cap, and then behind it, the cars that were normally used on the Chief or Super Chief. And some of the discussion around this photo on some of the Facebook sites where it was posted from folks who were from this era mentioned that normally this train would not have this much power, but by this late in their careers, they were not very well maintained. And so, they needed to put 9,000 nominal horsepower on this train, when by the time they got to Chicago, they were probably not all running at full efficiency.
I was going to say, how many cars are they pulling?
This is the westbound Grand Canyon at Chillicothe with a U-28 CG. I don't know what this train is. This is got 3 Fs on it. The F45, the FP45 on the head end has got a steam generator, but the 2 following units are F45s and they don't. So the steam generator in that one unit has to handle the whole train.
Well, it looks like a combined LCAP Super Chief.
Yeah, that would be, I guess, it's either, it's got to be late if it is, because I can't put it in this location.
It's less than a year before Amtrak.
Yeah. This is a really nice photo. You don't see too many PAs. So this is 1968, the eastbound Grand Canyon at Chillicothe with 2 PA-1s. Not a very long train. This is the eastbound San Francisco Chief at Chillicothe in 1968 with 2 FP45s. This is a little far afield, but again, I just thought it was a photo worth showing you. This is Amtrak's Super Chief LCAP in Flagstaff. Interesting thing is, notice the panel that's been replaced here, but is on the wrong side of the locomotive with the parabola facing the wrong way. And this is another oddity. This is a U-30CG, which the Santa Fe was the only purchaser. And that was based off a U-30C with a steam generator and a cowl. They were also removed from passenger service in '69 because of that derailment and repainted and used as freight units. All right, for our final section, we're going to go to Roosevelt Road, what I call the Ralphie and Candy Store. Here's a map. So this is Roosevelt Road, which was elevated, had sidewalks. We had Dearborn Station here. We had LaSalle Street Station here. We had Grand Central here. We had Union Station here. So there was plenty of activity to be had if you were a photographer. This is one of Rodney's earliest photos. This is a scan from a black and white print taken in May of 1955. Santa Fe, is that the Chicago and Western Indiana? I'm not sure.
Yeah, looks like it.
And some other road, I can't read the cars.
It's the Erie.
The Erie, okay.
Of those stations, Union Station's the only one left, right?
No, LaSalle Street is still functioning as a commuter station for the Rock Island, now Metro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Isn't Northwestern Station still functioning too?
Well, yeah, but you don't see that from Roosevelt Road.
Oh.
Because those trains all go north and then west. So here.
Okay, down.
Yeah, it was Northwestern Station is north of Union Station, and those tracks do not come to the south and are not going to be visible from Roosevelt Road or on that map that I showed you. So just 3 Grand Trunk GP9s at Union Station, Santa Fe next to it. Kind of interesting to see the U.S. mail trucks lined up here.
Actually, that's Dearborn, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, this is Dearborn.
Did Joy get rid of those trucks? Ha!
Here's the Erie Lackawanna at Dearborn Station in 1961. Chicago and Eastern Illinois car here. Santa Fe logo off, presumably a freight house. Yeah, look at that. This is, I'm going to go to my notes here because comments were made about this one on Facebook. And I think
condos there then.
This was probably, the consensus was this was probably the San Francisco chief, given it's late November, the sun angle, it left about 3 in the afternoon. So folks thought this was San Francisco chief, and boy, a lot of spit and polish there. This is a Fairbanks Morris H1244, switching some cars around the yard at Dearborn. We're going to see that engine a little later. There's another Santa Fe train at Dearborn. Looks like
in the winter time, to keep the passenger cars warm. Were the locomotives running the whole time, or did they have some way to plug steam in to the train from the station?
Most of these big stations always had house steam.
Yeah, that would be my supposition, but yeah, and this looks like it's just getting underway, looking at the exhaust coming out of those 5F units. Erie Lackawanna car in the background, some RPO cars. This is looking south from Roosevelt Road. I'm guessing this is the El Capitan, given the high level cars and the schedule, and looking at this is, I think the El Cap was due in at 7:30 in the morning. So that seems to be about right if this is May of.
Could be either the Texas chief or the San Francisco chief at the time.
Gordy, your microphone is horrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's that H1244 again. Putting the train together. This in the Amtrak era. Here we have
the freight units.
Here we have two freight units on the point. We got an F3B that's going to have to take care of the steam for that whole train. It's May, so maybe it's up to the task.
Notice he's got a transition car too.
Yes, back here.
Oh, that's cool.
It's right there.
What's that light colored pipe running down between some 2 tracks there?
I have no idea.
Odd looking thing,
yeah. This is the Danville Flyer coming out of Dearborn Station, 1967.
God, look at
that. This is the 20th Century Limited, getting ready to depart LaSalle Street Station, 1963. You will notice a lot of these slides here are all October 11th, 1963. So if any of you invent a time machine, that's the first date I want you to dial in and take me with you. Here's a couple of V8s, no train attached at LaSalle. An LRS 1200, presumably a station switcher. And what I find fascinating about this, we got what do we have, a 1959 Chevy. There's a Mercury, that's I think.
Or 60, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's Impala.
Impala. Ford, we got an Olds over here. There's a Ford.
T-Bird.
T-Bird, yeah. I mean, it's just.
The REA still exists in that shot too.
Lots of history there. The Aerotrain leaving LaSalle Street Station.
Yeah, Rock Island. There's them a couple of months ago.
Oh, there were telltales in that shot. They're gone too, aren't they?
Oh yeah. You're not allowed to be on the top of equipment anymore.
That's no fun.
Okay, this is a Fairbanks Morris Road switcher doing some switching at LaSalle for the Rock Island. There's a BL2.
In pasture shows, like the Western Maryland had.
Yeah.
Good cash now. Oh, GML E7s.
Yeah, coming into probably with a train from St. Louis. Baldwin VO, switching for the Burlington. Got some commuters here now with, here's a mix, you know, a low-level car, high-level car, another low-level car. You know, you mentioned of maybe a steam generator, looking at this exhaust, right, perhaps. Yeah, so maybe.
No, I think that's an electric generator.
Electric, yeah. I'm sorry, an electric generator, yeah.
Look at that gorgeous Penzi Tuscan red.
Yeah, yeah, look at that. Just a set of power on the ready track.
Oh, rainbow air.
Yeah, and of course now this, you know, this train is heading into the station or backing out of the station, but this is not the normal configuration of the E units on the triple tracks that I'm used to seeing. So maybe there was a period where they didn't turn them. And here's an inbound also with unit, I believe.
What was that? Great Northern? Yeah, very one. That's pretty sky blue.
Yeah, it's rare to see Great Northern blue on the commuter trains.
Yeah, there's a couple of them.
Oh, that's a murder.
What did Rodney do for his day job?
He worked for the B&O and for the chassis system. And I think he might have had other railroad jobs, and he traveled a lot. I think he was a bridge engineer or mechanical engineer, at least at some point. So he had access and he had opportunity and he had a camera.
Fortunately, yeah, he was a shutterbug. Good.
Yeah.
I guess that's Kodachrome, right?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. A little bit of everything in here.
They sure look nice.
This is the Amtrak Empire builder coming out of Union Station back in '73. Talking about a rainbow. And that is it, gentlemen.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's great. Yeah.